Hello, welcome back to this House of Walls. My name is Ashley, and on my channel here, I love to share anything book, homeschool, or kind of anything else that I feel like sharing. I always like to have a cup of coffee with me, or whatever it is that I am drinking at the time. This morning it is coffee in my cute little funny homeschool mama mug. And today we are going to be talking books that I read in June. Alright, I'm going to take a sip before we get into these books. Alright, so books for June. I did read 7 books. That's great. I did also hit 50 books of the year. Fantastic. I have also increased my Goodreads books from 60 books to 100. I figure if I can read 50 books in half the year, I'm going to push myself to read 50 more books by the end of the year. Now, while I did read 7 books, I will say that this month felt kind of slumpy in the books. I didn't have a 5-star book all month. And some of them I really didn't enjoy. So we are going to get into them and see what I read. The first book that I read is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is the first in a duology. Now, as I am filming this, I have just finished the second book. But as far as the first book goes, I did really enjoy this book. It follows Jack as he is coming back from the mainland to the island where he was raised, and he had been training as a bard on the mainland. He has been called back to the island because girls start to go missing, and they need his music to help talk to the spirits on the island to see what is happening to the girls. So this does have kind of a sense of like magical realism. It does have an island that has spirits and magic elements to it. It also has an island that is separated between 2 different clans that are warring. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was fantastic. I gave it 4 stars, and like I said, it encouraged me to keep going with the duology, and I just finished the second one. The next book that I read, this was for one of my in-person book clubs, and this is The Revisioners by Margaret Wilkerson Sexton. So it does have some awards, and so I think my whole book club was set to go into it thinking this is going to be a fantastic book. It wasn't. I didn't enjoy it, and I think that was kind of the overall feeling of the book club. This does follow 3 different timelines, but 2 of those timelines does follow the same person, just in different times. So you are following Josephine as she is a girl and a slave. And then you are following her in 1924 when she is free and part of a sharecropholder. And then the next timeline is you are following Ava, who is more modern day and a descendant of Josephine. There are some kind of magical realism elements in this book, but none of it really makes sense. None of it, like, this is why there is this magical realism. And that's kind of for the whole book, that there's all these different plot lines that are and could be very interesting, but none of them tie together. You're just kind of left at the end of the book like, that's it? There's no real connection between Josephine's timelines and Ava's. And the people that they encounter during their 2 different timelines, there's just kind of nothing to it. So overall, this was a big letdown. I really wanted to like this book, but it did get 2 stars. All right, my next book I felt kind of at this point that it was going to be a little bit of a slumpy month, and so I had picked up a go-to author of mine that in the past I can read some of her books within a day. So I picked up Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. It did not bring what I wanted it to bring, unfortunately. So this is following a woman who has just been released from prison and is going to try to reconnect with her daughter, who is with her paternal grandparents. Of course, there's romance, there's drama, just like all of Colleen Hoover's books. Unfortunately, this one just fell flat for me. I didn't overall like the characters. They just didn't grab me, and the overall plot, it just, I don't know. It felt, even though there was a lot of drama and hard things happening in this book, it felt like it was too convenient, that it was kind of tied with a bow. It had been a while since I have read Colleen Hoover, and I do still have a couple of other books that I have not read of hers yet, so I'm hoping to pick those up soon and see if Colleen Hoover still does it for me, or maybe not. Maybe I've moved on to other genres and authors. So overall, 2 stars. Oh wow. So for my next book, I decided I have a ton of book of the months, and this one is a really short book of the month. I believe, yeah, it's under 300 pages. So I thought, okay, this is going to solve my kind of slumpiness. This is going to be great. So I picked up The Half Moon by Mary Beth Keane. It didn't do it either. It was better than The Revisioners and the Colleen Hoover. I listened to this on audio, and I thought, okay, this is going to be quick, easy audio. It follows Malcolm, who is the owner of the Half Moon Bar, and his estrangement with his wife. Somehow in the course of the week, you still learn a lot about Malcolm and his estranged wife, and kind of some history between them. You know that somebody who had been at the bar before the snowstorm has disappeared, and there's kind of, the bar is really kind of struggling, and so you learn kind of the history of the bar. It just, I don't know, it just kind of fell flat. It didn't quite grab me as I was hoping it would. So this did get 3 stars from me. So then my next book, another go-to author that I have loved some of her books that I have read, but I will say I am kind of reading some of her backlisted books, and I'm not enjoying them as much as her new ones. And that is Kristen Hanna, and so I read Between Sisters. So this follows 2 different sisters that are estranged and living very different lives, and really kind of just deals with their miscommunications and those miscommunications coming to light over the course of one of the sisters getting married. It was okay. I think kind of 3 stars. You can tell that it is definitely one of Kristen Hanna's early novels. The next book was for a buddy read that I hosted on Instagram, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. So, I read this in physical form, I read it on Kindle form, and then I switched to audio. I will say that the overall rating of this book was 4 stars for me. It is a very complex world with very complex cast of characters. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of elements and places in this world that at times can be really, really hard to keep everything straight. Now, I will say that my theory is this author wanted this to be a massive standalone because it will grab interest. I think that this author could have easily split this into more books, and that we kind of could connect and get a little bit deeper into some of the parts of the world and some of the main characters. But I think to release a massive, huge standalone kind of draws people's interest more, and they want to see what it's all about. I don't know how to give a kind of wrap up of what this book is about, because it is over 800 pages. There's a lot that happens in this book. It is kind of East versus West. One side that does not allow dragons or believe in dragons or anything like that, and one side that kind of does. Of course, things happen that kind of has to force them to figure out some of their rights and some of their wrongs. I'll leave it at that. I am interested in reading the kind of standalone prequel to this. I do have it, and I'm interested to see. I think that it takes place like 1,000 years before this does, and so I'm interested to read kind of the lead up and setting to this book. All right, my last book of the month that I was able to finish was actually a recommendation from my niece, so shout out to her. This is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. So this is post-apocalyptic. You know that something bad has happened, the end of civilization has happened, kind of, there's no more animals, you're not thriving, and there's really no way to come back from it. And in this book, you are following a father with his young son as they are trying to come down from the mountains and get out of the cold for the winter and hopefully find enough food to survive. But it's really, you're kind of scavenging food that somehow hasn't been found yet, and that's really the only way to survive. There's nothing growing, everything is covered in ash. I really liked it. I thought it was really well written. I liked that you don't know how this happened, or why, or if there's any way to come back from it. But basically you're kind of finding out that the world is dying and that there's no coming back from it, and the people that are trying to survive are just holding out as long as they can. I really did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. Alright, so that is the books that I read. Let me see if I can hold them up. There we are. There's all the books. So while it did feel like a pretty slumpy reading month and there wasn't a 5-star book in that pile, I did accomplish some great books. Some of these books have been on my TBR for a while, and so I'm really glad that I have read them and can continue on with my reading. And so here's hoping that July will not be as slumpy of a reading month. I have my coffee again, so I'm gonna go refill it and continue on with our day. As always, if you like these types of videos, make sure to subscribe and like below, and I will be back for more videos soon.